Well, first of all, thank you both for being here today. Really, really appreciate it. Mayor Long, we're going to start out with you. A lot of our residents are really unfamiliar with League City's form of government. Can you explain your role as mayor and the council's role, as well as how that relates to City Manager John Baumgartner?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the easiest way to think of it is more attuned to like a corporate structure. So in that sense, the city council would be the board of directors, and then I'm merely kind of the chairman of the board. So I don't really serve in an executive role. It's mostly just organizing the chaos of the board. And then the board would hire the city manager, which would be the CEO in that case. And so we're really there to help set the general direction. Biggest things we do is help set the budget and priorities, but we're not there to, on a day-to-day basis, micromanage or make the decisions. So it's setting the charting the course, and then allowing the city manager to decide and make those decisions on exactly how we're going to get to that course.
So let's dive into 2023. I know it's hard to believe it's going to be March tomorrow, but let's talk a little bit about our accomplishments in 2023. What are you most proud of that League City accomplished?
So, in the video, it mentioned again, I believe it was at $68 million in CIP projects. So I think when you saw the citizen survey, most people are happy about the majority of things that are going on in the city. The place where we do kind of get lower scores, and I agree with it as well, it's traffic, infrastructure, flooding, and drainage, right? So we have to invest in those things. And so over the past several years, we've invested record amounts, and I've been on the city council or mayor for about 10 years now, and we've basically doubled the amount of infrastructure funding that we're pouring in every year. And at the same time, we've drastically decreased the tax rate. So we've looked for ways to decrease the tax rate, limit the amount of new debt we're getting, but then also still plow more money back into infrastructure spending. And that really goes kind of with fiscal discipline, and then also, frankly, new growth, right? So as we're growing and as we're putting in 900 new homes a year, or in other years it might be a little bit less, we've been able to kind of prioritize where we're spending the money, invest more in infrastructure, and then still maintain the tax rate and decrease it below the no new revenue rate every year.
So, John, I'm going to ask you the same question. What are you most proud of that we accomplished in 2023?
Well, everything that the mayor said, of course. He covered a lot of ground. I think, as we think about League City, and again, think about the priorities of the community, with traffic kind of being the number one thing we hear, drainage. After years and years, we did complete I-45 through League City, as the mayor promised last year. And that has made such a significant impact in traffic. It affected all of our major interchanges with I-45, and everybody has to drive through those. I think everybody appreciates how much more efficiently that flows. But, of course, we're not done. And of course, we continue to try to work conservative within our means, and while lowering the tax rate at the same time. That's the single biggest one, but our work's not done. We continue to focus on the traffic impacts.
So another question for you. What was the biggest challenge in 23, and what's going to be the biggest challenge in 2024, do you think?
Well, I think, I've been here 12 years now, and as we've watched League City grow from just over 85,000 to nearly 125,000. And so as we kind of saw growth slow down, from Harvey, the pandemic, all the things that we don't want to remember, the winter freeze, growth is always the challenge, and just trying to keep up with growth as it affects drainage, traffic, and water and wastewater supply. We have to continue to invest in our community, do that responsibly, try to make sure that growth pays its way through the use of impact fees or other fees. And so growth is right there at the forefront of everything we do. It affects every department in the community, from public safety to parks and recreation to public works, and so that continues to be the challenge.
Same question for you, Mayor Long. What do you think was the biggest challenge in 23 and moving forward in 24?
Yeah, so growth is great, right? Growth helps you spread your cost out, bring in new revenue, but then at the same time, it also puts you behind on drainage and behind on infrastructure. So we need to look for ways to, I think, allocate costs properly too many cities just get overly reliant on property tax as their form of funding, the government property tax, and then sales tax to a certain extent, right? But by doing things like impact fees, like we went through last night and talked about fire impact fee or fire fees for various things, and looking for different ways to allocate costs to the people that are generating that cost, and then removing that burden from the general taxpayers, that's a way of reducing property tax burdens, but still providing funding for the activities that need to get done, and then more accurately putting the burden on those activities that are causing the burden. So if you want to put in a 2,000 house subdivision, well, you're going to pay the impact fees that caused by that. So when you're putting that in, there's going to be flooding that now the water can't go into that field. You're going to cause a bigger impact to the arterial roadways. So you're going to have to pay to help expand those roadways. And so all those different areas that for too long cities have relied on the other 120,000 citizens to pay for in general, it's putting the money back and reallocating that cost to the people that are causing that cost to start in the first place.
So as we saw in the video and correctly answered by our audience member, our population number 121,595, so almost like 122,000. So John, this question is for you. As we face that growth on that southwest side of town with thousands of new homes coming in, what are we doing to prepare for that future growth, particularly when it comes to water and to wastewater?
Yeah, so, as we look at growth and have looked at growth historically, in planning for it, we go through a very systematic methodology of developing water and wastewater master plans, trying to anticipate our needs for water and wastewater today, 10 years from now, and ultimately to build out. So we've undertaken, again, a number of different capital improvement projects. For water, we have to replace the big water line that comes from Houston to, number one, to replace it because it's functionally obsolete, it's old, it's coming apart, and then two, to add additional capacity to that line. That's about a $200 million project, our share, which is about $100 million. In addition to that, coming up, we have to increase the supply of actual water to us, and so that's an expansion of the water treatment plant in Houston. It's adding wells throughout the community, as those projects take a long time to develop. And then we're in the midst of a wastewater plant expansion. And then, how do we pay for that? Today, we deliver water to the citizens' doors for just over a penny a gallon. We all look at our water bill, we say it's a lot. But when we really think about what a gallon of water costs to get to your home and then take it away as wastewater, it's just over a penny a gallon. We're proud of those numbers. We do have to continue to watch that. But we've been, council has directed us when we look at development, how to best project what the incremental impact is to those homes. And today, that number is about $15,000 before the home even gets started associated with water and wastewater. And so part of it's to plan for what you need, part of it's to build what you need, and then the other part's to pay for what you need. And so we stay on top of that. We do updates regularly, and we invite both the community and the development community to participate in that.
Mayor Long, hard to believe this stat, but 40% of the city has yet to be developed. When I say that to folks, their mouth kind of drops. But what is the council doing, and how are they involved in preparing for the future growth of the city?
Yeah, so I grew up here in League City when it was closer to 35, 40,000 people. And I don't think I realized that, League City went all the way to Alvin, way out on the west side. And still, when you drive way down 517, it's hard to believe when you're out there that this is still League City. So I think there's a variety of different challenges that come with that, right? So a lot of we've already had kind of one big wave of growth, and now we're getting a chance to do it again. And I think we have to take the positive things that we did in the first wave of growth and continue those. And then we probably need to think of the things that didn't work out so well. We probably, in the first wave of growth, did not build the roads fast enough and caused a lot of traffic issues. We, did not anticipate drainage to the extent that we did. So as we're building out that far southwest side and that 40%, we have to take in all those issues from the beginning. And growth is great, but we don't need growth for growth's sake. The land will always be there. So I think a slower, more measured approach to that. 900 homes is still a lot. 900 to 1,000 homes, I think is something we can handle and bring on. We don't need to rush to do that faster. Let's build the infrastructure and accommodate it as it comes. And then in another sense, there's even a different problem, and that's the development of the cohesion of the Southwest side with the rest of town, right? So I live on the east side and grew up on the east side. The Southwest side of town's pretty far away, and a lot of the kids that grow up there will live in Dickinson ISD. They'll play Dickinson Little League or Santa Fe Little League, and they'll be 25, 30 minutes away from right here, right now. So as we expand out there, how do we maintain that small town feel, the basic charm of League City, the cohesion in a town in which now we're operating in 3 different school districts, and it's not the same place that I necessarily grew up in. So there's, of course, the logical infrastructure challenges, but then there's the cultural challenges, which, I mean, that's your department.
That's my goal, right? That's my problem. Another question for you, Mayor Long. As we develop and League City's population grows, how important is that we expand commercial development?
Yeah, I mean, commercial development is going to be the key to this, right? I mean, we're not going to be a city that puts up smokestacks and refineries. That's just not where we're going to get our big tax boost from. So we need those commercial developments for a variety of reasons. We need it to, first of all, bring in sales tax to help reduce the reliance on property tax. But then even more than that, we need it for, the cultural reasons and the convenience. We don't want to have to be driving up to Baybrook every time you want to go shopping or every time you want to go to a restaurant. We need to help develop restaurants, town center areas where people can, live, work, and play all in a concrete and kind of concentrated area. So as we build those out, I think those are great from a monetary standpoint, but then are just good for a convenience and cultural standpoint as well. So really attracting commercial enterprises that people want to see is something that we have to do. And when we do that, we also have to do it in a way that we're not, just giving up the farm for it, right? I have people ask me, like, why did we not go after Great Wolf Lodge? Well, Great Wolf Lodge would have been great if it was in League City. However, they wanted $65 million of League City taxpayer money. I'm not going to give $65 million to attract that, that hotel 200 yards further to the south. So I think we're going to pursue commercial development. We're going to pursue commercial development that people want to see in this town, that people, kind of stuff that people want to use, but we're also just not going to overpay or give up a whole bunch of money for them.
City Manager John Baumgartner, this question is for you. Traffic. It's always on everyone's mind. It's the hot topic of the city. Can you update us on the latest projects that were completed in 2023 and kind of tell us what's in the future?
Yeah, sure. I always like talking about infrastructure. As I think most people know, I always say city manager by day, but engineer in the heart. So the passion to see the projects completed. I've been here 12 years. We've worked on many of them. One of them, unfortunately, for as long as 12 years. But I think we've made great strides in getting the project delivery stuff going. Certainly there's still challenges, but last year, of course, we already talked about I-45. We completed Grissom Road over there by the stadium. We made a number of League City Parkway corridor improvements, installing traffic signals and turn lanes at Landing Boulevard and at Bay Area Boulevard to help facilitate that traffic. And then we added a traffic signal and turn lane at Calder Road. We continue to work with our transportation partners, TxDOT. We hope in 2024 that we'll see 646 under construction and rebuild that as a 4-lane divided roadway from Highway 3 all the way out to 146. That'll come with an overpass over the railroad, and so it'll be quite the construction project. We're working with TxDOT to get intersection improvements at Walker Street and State Highway 96. Those are paid by our local dollars in partnership with the county, but it's a TxDOT highway, so we need their approval, and we've been trying to work on that. State Highway 3 and FM 518, the same sort of project, adding turn lanes and making those intersections more effective. We call those bottleneck improvements. Those are all in the works. Walker Street corridor, so up there by 646, we're adding some signals and some turn lanes to help make that flow a little bit better. And then the landing, kind of a little bit further out, we've got the landing bridge. That's my 12-year project. We've purchased the last difficult piece of property. Tuesday night, council approved that. That's buying most of the U-Haul, putting a road right through the middle of it. That was an $11 million purchase. And then we've got to get the pipelines that are in the corridor relocated. That we hope that will bid out in 2025. And then the latest we hear on the Grand Parkway project that we've pushed, and TxDOT is finally moving it forward with land acquisition and design. Hope to start construction as soon as late 2026 or 2027 and be completed in 2031. So we're excited about that. We're excited about that, what offers the west side. And then the last west side project that we're working on currently in partnership with the development community is the extension of Landing Boulevard from Campbell Elementary to Friendswood. That is under construction today. They anticipate that being complete before the end of the year, and then they're also widening the section between Bay Area Boulevard and Maple Leaf from a 2-lane roadway to a 4-lane roadway. So transportation is always at the forefront of what we're doing. We work with all the different partners, including the county, including the state, including the development community, to continue to push those roads forward. The one area that we haven't had much activity on is the widening of FM 270. I can't get TxDOT's attention, particularly right there at League City Parkway and 270. That intersection is pretty miserable most times of the day, with traffic backing up into the turn lanes. And then 517, which kind of runs our border, there's a project to widen that to 4-lane. That keeps getting delayed, but again, we continue to push all those projects forward to make traffic and transportation better in Lake City.
That's a lot of projects.
It's a lot of projects.
Mayor Long, as we saw in the video, we just recently completed our 3rd citizen satisfaction survey. Can you elaborate a little bit on the results and what we plan to kind of do with those results?
Yeah, so I would say I didn't find any surprises in the survey. I think most people in general feel Lake City is a great place to live. It was 95% satisfaction on that. They feel it's a safe city. They like a lot of the things that we're doing. The things they complain about the most, right? Traffic, and then drainage in general. And, I don't know how much we paid for this survey, but I could have probably told you those things as well, right? Like, those are the things that you just walk around town and you hear about constantly. And so I think what it does is it kind of just reinforces our priorities as we're going into the budget season, right? So we need to continue to do what we do well already, and that's police protection. It's the level of service given by the employees of the city of League City, our parks facilities, things of that nature. Those all get very, very high goals. And then we need to make sure that we can continually reinvest more of that money into those infrastructure projects. There's going to be certain things that are just very, very hard to fix, if not impossible. I mean, the water will always run into Clear Creek and Dickinson Bayou. I mean, that's just, we live in a flat plain with these 2 large bayous, and we're right in between them. And those are going to be hard problems to fix. But there are other things that we can do to fix some issues that were created in these subdivisions, move the water out of those subdivisions quicker, and then as we develop the new parts, let's get ahead of those problems and not create more issues by the development in the southwest side.
So in the survey, we ranked very high in our fire and police services and residents feeling safe in their neighborhood. What are some of the things we're doing to keep that level of service and keep our residents safe? Yeah,
so I'll start first on the fire side of it. So for the first time in city history, I guess in the 80 plus years of a volunteer fire department here in League City, we actually have a fire contract with the volunteers, and this was the first year it got passed. And really what that contract does is it lays out what they expect of us and what we expect of them and puts those metrics in place. So we're the 2nd largest city in Texas with a volunteer fire department, first being Pasadena, kind of right next door. And so the nice part about having that volunteer fire department, it saves $10-20 million a year. It saves a substantial amount of money, which then we can redeploy that money to the police force and to the other sides of it. So by having that volunteer fire department, it really does help free up a lot of money elsewhere. And then on the police side, so we expect a lot from our officers. So we expect kind of a high level of professionalism. We expect a high level of service that comes with that. And we pay the officers for that, right? We maybe don't have as many officers per citizen as elsewhere. And there's some, obviously demographic reasons for that. We don't have a whole lot of crime here, but we need to make sure that we are hiring the best and paying them accordingly when we're doing that, and then also giving them the tools. And so one of those tools that we've invested, really not all that much money in, but we've started to really ramp up the investment in are those flock cameras. There is really not a week that goes by that we don't see payback on that investment, from catching murder suspects to plenty of car thefts and just basic other crimes that are being caught on these cameras. And so we've not only put them in the major roadways, but we've also created a program to work with the HOAs so that we can put them at the entrances to the HOAs. And so we will front the first part of that bill. The HOA kind of gets to see the results of what these cameras can do, and then the HOAs take over that bill later. But they'll still be within our system, still be able to transmit that information directly back to our police and across the kind of greater network across Houston. And so these cameras are a way of just increasing our ability to respond faster and in a more precise manner. For each one of these cameras only costs $2,500, so it's a not a giant price tag for what you get, and really I think a way of stretching our dollars even further.
So, John, I'm going to have you elaborate that on a little bit more. We actually had a recent report that came out in 2023 that said League City is one of the top 10 safest city in America. What makes us such a safe city? I know we mentioned a couple things in the video that you may want to elaborate on.
Well, I think, in light of great public safety people, we also have great citizens, and the citizens contribute to helping keep our cities safe. There are eyes and ears out there. If there's something going on or something going wrong, then it's the citizens that help communicate that, whether it's to 911 or to police or to City Hall. And all of that, helps kind of complete the full circle of what's necessary for a great, safe city.
Mayor Long, the city has continued to lower the property tax rate year after year. In fact, this is the 9th year in the row that we've had a property tax decrease. How has League City been able to remain fiscally strong and to do this?
Yeah, so I think the first part of it is just setting a goal to do it and making it a priority. So you often see a lot of cities that go out there and they say, oh, well, we maintain the tax rate. Well, if you maintain the tax rate, but the appraisals go up 25%, you just increase taxes 25% is all you really did. But then you can go out and say that you didn't touch the tax rate. Or another trick is to decrease it 5% and then have the appraisals go up 10%. That's still a tax increase. So I think what we've done is one of the city manager's top goals is to bring in the budget at or below the no new revenue rate. So that's saying whatever the appraisals went up, on average, obviously, we want to bring in the same amount of dollars on the old taxable value again next year. So truly no tax increase going forward. Of course, we're going to bring in more revenue on the new stuff that was built, because there's expense that will go up when you build new stuff, or you build 900 new homes. We're going to need to service those. So we'll bring in the new revenue from that. But on anything else that was existing, we're not going to. And so we make that a priority, and we make it literally his top goal, and we follow that every year when we're going into the budget side. And then the other aspect of that is looking to allocate cost appropriately. So, when I first got here, the citizens of League City in the basic general fund was paying for development. So if you were to build a new subdivision, the citizens were basically subsidizing the engineering cost, subsidizing the planning cost, subsidizing the new water infrastructure, subsidizing the new road infrastructure. Well, that doesn't make much sense. Why should the 120,000 existing residents subsidize the cost of a new subdivision for the developer and for the new people that are going to move into those homes? That's not right. So what we've gone and done is moved all those expenses to impact fees. So you are doing something that's causing the expense to go up. you're going to pay that. That gets tacked on to the value of the new house. That gets allocated properly. If you are consuming the planning department's resources, okay, well, you're going to pay whatever that time for the planning department is. So all these different areas, the fees went up to accommodate that. So that then really the general fund is paying for things that support the 125,000 people in this city and don't necessarily support the development of new land. New development needs to pay for itself.
John, 2023 was a record year for our capital improvement project investment. In fact, we invested $65.8 million in CIP projects. Can you explain a little bit to the audience here what are capital improvement projects and why is this record number so relevant?
Yeah, so the capital improvement projects are really the foundation for the community as it relates to infrastructure. It's roadways, it's water and sewer lines, it's facilities, normal stuff that just takes that citizens need to function in their daily lives and those type of projects. And so our CIP program is very robust. 5-year program is approaching $500 million. And so there's still a lot of work for us to do, but there are a lot of demands that are growth driven, and we again try to meet that. We hear from the citizens regularly regarding traffic and drainage, and so we develop those plans and then start to implement those projects. And they all take longer than we'd like to. How come does I-45 take 5 years to rebuild while it's under traffic with 150,000 cars a day? And then work through the various permitting processes. I'm proud of what our staff has accomplished that works on CIP. I got a few of them here today. I've got engineering, project delivery, the finance folks, the planning folks. They're sitting over here. Why don't the folks associated with delivering CIP stand up just for a second? I know there's other staff people there.
I think that's that's everybody in staff.
Why don't all our staff stand up that helps make League City great? Chief, stand up. They're great. They're great people. They're focused on building League City to be the very best. And again, there's a lot of projects and a lot of stuff to deliver, and they're working very hard to get there.
So we saw in the citizen survey that Parks and Recreation services extremely important to our residents. Can you elaborate a little bit on what was completed in 23 and kind of what do we have in store for the coming year?
Yeah, so the parks program, quality of life type stuff is just as robust as the traffic and the drainage. And in 2023, we've worked on Eastside Dog Park. We saw that in the video. Bay Ridge Park, the renovations at Lindgra Pond Park, and then public art everywhere, whether it's at the traffic signal boxes, the intersections, the new murals. We've really embraced that and excited about how that program is continuing to advance. But it doesn't just stop with there. We've got more park projects planned. We're working on a revamp of Newport Park, of Lobet Park. We've got a low water crossing going in at Lindgra Pond Park that will lead to an expansion of the bike trails across Magnolia Creek over there by Oaks of Clear Creek. We're working on plans for the Kilgore track to bring a boardwalk along the creek and along the bayou over there. We're working on the boat launch, rebuilding the boat launch at FM 270, and then kayak launches at 270 and off of Kansas Avenue, and those are all in the plans. And then I don't know if we talked anything about Big League Dreams. I don't know if the mayor's going to talk about that.
He is. That's the hot question for the mayor next.
So then I'll just skip over kind of how that blends in. But there's plenty of park projects, plenty of opportunities for the community to get involved and make sure that we're building the parks that the community wants.
So on to that question about Big League Dreams. So council recently instructed the city to take over the management and operations of Big League Dreams ballpark. Can you elaborate on that decision and why it was made? Yeah,
so to be frank, the Big League Dreams has been kind of an unmitigated disaster for 25 years. City money should have never gone to build a giant piece of infrastructure that really only benefited a private corporation and didn't really do anything for the citizens of League City except cost us a ton of money. So when it failed a couple years ago, I had wanted to take it over. I didn't have the votes, but we went back out and hired a new partner. They reinvested into the program. They brought it back up. It is much better today than it was a couple years ago. However, when we're sitting in meeting after meeting and they haven't paid the rent, they haven't paid the water bill, and then they just, frankly, they tell us to our face that, hey, we're taking the money out of League City and we're putting it in California at our facilities there because they need it more than you guys do. Well, that's not the answer that I care about, right? Or that you guys should care about. So it became pretty obvious that we need to take back over. This is built by taxpayer money. Taxpayers need to take it back over. So I think the plan is that there's already programming scheduled there throughout the summer. So we're going to run it throughout the summer in the same manner that it was run in the past, right? For these select ball tournaments and paid entry. But as we do that, we're going to look for ways to make this much more of a community park and much more of a community asset. And that's things like putting actual parks and recreation programming there on off nights, renovating some of the existing stuff, looking for other ways to utilize facilities out there for the benefit of the citizens, not for the benefit of outside people. And then as we kind of go along and through the first 6 months of running this, then it's time to consider what to do with this next. And frankly, I think, what I would like to do with it is kind of a hybrid version of, instead of dumping another $60, $70 million into a park off of Calder Road, let's look at how we can use the facilities we already own to reduce the price of the new facility over on Calder Road and make this much more of a community asset as opposed to some quasi-government for-profit enterprise. So I would like to just look at this as how we can convert it back to a city facility.
So wrapping up our questions, I promise we're going to get to our audience questions. What can residents look forward to in 2024, John, and what's on the horizon?
So, as we look to 2024, we're going to continue to address issues associated with growth. We're going to continue with our commitment to deliver capital improvement projects. We're going to focus on all the things that are important to the community: streets, transportation, drainage, fiscal responsibility. Continue to deliver a conservative budget with a reduction in the no new revenue rate or at the no new revenue rate. Continue our communication efforts to the community so they know what's going on. Our commitment to our most valuable asset, all of our employees. And again, just continue to deliver on our promises to provide world-class customer service to the citizens and businesses of League City.
Same question for you, Mayor Long. What can residents look forward to and what's on the horizon?
Yeah, so I think it's just about continually doing the things that we do well. Let's continue down the same path that we've been on the parts that we get high scores on, and then prepare for that future growth and really prepare for how the Grand Parkway is going to change the southwest side of town and change the way that we kind of generally interact with our roadways. So, instead of, when you're going to Sugar Land, driving north and then getting on the Beltway and going out that way, it's going to open up everything on that Grand Parkway when it connects. And so we have a unique opportunity to plot the course of, the next 50 years of this city in the next 2-3 years. So let's take advantage of those opportunities. Let's build that out and do it right the first time, so that we're not, so some other guy 20 years from now isn't complaining about the flooding that's caused by the development of the southwest side.
So we're going to get to our questions now from the audience. We got quite a big stack, so let's get through these. John, I think this is going to be the question for you. When will all the drainage projects that were voter approved in 2019 be completed?
So I think we've made good progress on most of the drainage projects that were improved in 2019. We've addressed the subdivisions that were worst hit by Harvey, Oaks of Clear Creek, Bay Ridge, Dove Meadow. The Meadows project is currently under construction right now. The Bay Colony project is complete. There's 4 or 5 projects that are ready for bid. There's a couple of projects that were delayed because we took advantage of some grant programs to make those even stronger. And then there's 2 or 3 projects where we've been unable to develop community consensus, and we'll have to come back to council and talk about what's next for those. But all of the projects, like I said, I think we're doing pretty good. You know, we said when we started it was a 5-year program. 5 years will be up in May, and we hope to have everything under construction that we can. We're working on kind of the last piece at Gum Bayou, which is a big project, looking to partner with the development down there in Texas City to provide some detention. That's kind of one of the longer ones. And then Benson's Bayou is another higher dollar project that we're still not clear as to what's the best solution with the dollars that we have. But out of the $73 million, we've invested about $50 million of it so far.
Councilman Long, or Mayor Long, this might be a question for you. What is the plan to have a paid fire department versus volunteer? Is there one in the future?
Yeah, I mean, so there is no plan that I want to have a paid fire department. I think we need to keep it volunteer. And that's really where this new contract comes into place. So the new contract spells out what is expected of the volunteers. And it spells out the staffing that they need to have, the response time they need to have. If they don't live up to the commitments that are made in the contract, well, then at that point, there's time to start talking about other options, and including, you know, hiring part-timers or going full paid. But I think they have confidence in the goals that they've set, and I have confidence that they're going to live up to those. So until they don't live up to what's there, I would love to continue to remain volunteer.
John, this question may be for you. What is causing the delay of the Davis Road construction, and when will it be done? I've been driving through mud for 2 years.
I think that's the water line.
Yeah, so I think that's the waterline project there, and so that project was actually a tunnel that took us from Highway 3 all the way across Clear Creek and goes to the water plant at South Shore. That one's nearing completion. I'd like to say that it should be completed in the next 3 or 4 months. Somebody shakes their head yes, so we're quickly wrapping that up. Right now what they have to do is, some of it was different types of tunneling, and so they have to tie in all the tunnel pieces. I know they're out there working today because I saw it, but it should be done before the end of the summer.
Did you take that question from my wife? Is that the? Because I get that question a lot from her when she drives back in.
I did not take that question from your wife.
We'll work on getting her car clean.
Yeah.
Again.
With the influx of immigrants coming into the U.S., how is League City handling future issues or problems if they should come to this area?
I mean, frankly, we haven't seen an issue with it. There's been no, proposals to, house anybody here or anything like that. So I think it's something, of course, you have to be vigilant about, and really this probably falls more into Dr. Bonin than it does us. But, we haven't had any issues with it or seen any proposals by the federal government to house anybody in League City. Frankly, it's probably too expensive a place to do it.
What is the status of the Amazon facility?
This might seem like that was almost like a dual question. So, yeah, same thing. I think there's rumors about the federal government housing people in the Amazon facility. There has been no even concrete talk of that or anything beyond that of rumors. The Amazon facility is one of the largest available warehouses, in the Houston area, and particularly in the south side of Houston. And so they are actively trying to lease it. It has cold storage. It has a variety of things that people need. I would love to see the right kind of thing put in there, but it's also not the worst thing that it just sits there. Amazon's paying for it, and they're paying the tax bill. So, at least in that case, there is no traffic being generated out of it either. So,
John, could you expand on the Grand Parkway project? Where are we at with that?
So again, many of you who followed the Grand Parkway project saw very, very little effort for years and years. And then, the mayor, the council, State Representative Bonin worked hard to get it brought up to the forefront of TxDOT's priorities and how do we move that forward. And so again, TxDOT currently is working both on final design and land acquisition. We have regular meetings with them to kind of keep that moving forward. And again, as I said, hope to be under construction in 2026 or early 2027 with a roadway complete in 2031. We're excited about that. Our community has expected that. We have planned for that. Certainly the areas on the southwest side have protected the roadway corridor so that it fits in there without having the expense of buying not only the land for the roadway but improved property. Some of the tie-in as it relates between Calder Road and I-45 is a little bit tighter, and they'll have to buy some improved properties in there. So again, we're excited to work with TxDOT. We're excited to work with the development community so we know where the roadway's coming. We know where the interchanges are going to be. We're going to be able to cross over it at regular intervals. We're going to have interchanges at Maple Leaf, at Bay Area Boulevard, at Landing, at Calder Road. And again, excited for that project to continue to develop and continue to enhance our community and provide us some economic opportunities when it's complete related to commercial development.
I think these three questions, I'm going to combine them together because someone wants to know when we're getting a Trader Joe's. Someone wants to know when we're getting a Whole Foods. And then the question is, what are we doing to actively recruit businesses into League City? I'm getting frustrated driving into Friendswood and Webster.
Yeah, so there's a couple of big projects that we're looking at already. Some on the southwest side, some in other places, that would be good fits for all of those different things that you're talking about. And Scott Livingston's up front. He's the economic development director. We are routinely talking about several different big projects, either on the creek or in other places around town. And I agree with you, right? Like, we want to create these places where you can stay in town and eat dinner or go to a little shop or different things like that. So we are working on those right now. There's going to be some that come out in the next maybe 6 months, 8 months, that will be interesting projects that can help develop more of that restaurant scene and entertainment area in League City.
One question, could you please explain the fire department, volunteer versus salary? Some of our fire department employees have salaries and the rest are volunteer. You want to tackle that one, John?
Sure. So again, functionally, fire department's broken up into 2 or 3 sections. One piece is EMS. The EMS are paid. We run 5 ambulances at a time. We have a fire marshal's effort, so that's fire prevention, and they're paid. And then fire suppression is run by our volunteer department. And so that's about 150 volunteers. They staff 6 stations. They have either stipend crews or just crews, and typically the goals have 2 crews stationed in the city at all times with fully staffed engines, and that's the goal. But if they're not, they also respond when called, and if there's a structure fire and they need more people, then they come and fight it with the appropriate amount of people. We also have interlocal agreements with the surrounding communities for mutual aid to support those efforts. And so, we say it's a volunteer. It also has some hybrid pieces to it where it's partly paid and partly and partly volunteer. So it's a great department and provides great fire protection for our community.
And then just to kind of, so there's rankings on fire protection services, and so we have the top ranking, which is ISO 1, and we're one of the only volunteer fire departments that has that kind of top ranking as well. So we get a lot of great service out of them, saves tens of millions of dollars, and now we just have to kind of monitor that and make sure that we're keeping up with where everybody expects the service to be.
This question I'm going to answer, do we have the results of the community survey? You saw a lot of that today, but it's also posted on our website today. So you can actually link to the 127-page report if you would like to, that goes into great detail. What is the process to get sidewalks and trails repaired?
So one of the programs that we initiated maybe about 2015 was, we called it a reinvestment program. And so, much like we talk about public safety and community involvement in that, we depend a lot on the community to report sidewalk and trail issues. We invest nearly $1 million a year in sidewalk and trail repairs, and so if there's an issue, you can email me, you can email Jody Hooks. Jody Hooks, raise your hand, and it will get on a list. Most of the time those lists take a few months to get repaired, but if you get on a list, then it gets repaired. And And so that's the process to do that. We also have a few communities where there's small gaps in sidewalks, and we also go in and look at filling those in. Sometimes that's a partnership with the HOA where we pay half and they pay half. So there's lots of dollars invested in that, and we get a pretty steady stream of folks writing us and letting us know where sidewalk sections need to be repaired, whether they're broken from cars running over them or whether there's differential settlement. Maybe it's from tree roots, and then obviously there we have to address the tree issue before we can do the repair sometimes.
Do impact fees apply to commercial development or just residential development?
So impact fees apply to all new development, and whether it's an office building or a retail establishment, they all pay water and wastewater impact fees for what's called a single family equivalent is about $15,000 now. So commercial with a bigger meter, pays a higher percentage of that. They also pay roadway impact fees, which are evaluated based on the demand they put on the roadway. So commercial development pays a pretty hefty impact fees. Obviously, the council can look at that and provide reimbursement if they so desire. We haven't done that in several years.
Mayor Long, I think this question is for you. So council is considering an ordinance charging non-citizens of League City for fire and EMS services. Why, and do other cities do this?
Yeah, so that's not exactly what it did. So oftentimes in your car insurance or your home insurance or a variety of different things, you have there's a line in there for reimbursement of emergency personnel, and these are for the different consumables that are put on it. So it's a couple $1,000s that might be able to get reimbursed back to the fire department. And kind of hats off to the chief for looking into this. For years we hadn't been claiming any of this money. So we just simply been not collecting it. So by going after and going to collect what is due to the fire department, that's another way to generate a couple $100,000 a year to help offset some of the costs in the fire department. And anytime that we offset those costs in the fire department with those fees that can be generated, that is direct savings back to the general fund. There's a couple areas that are also just frankly totally abused. So there's a telecommunications vendor that's been going through town running fiber optics. They were cutting gas lines, sometimes 2 or 3 gas lines a day. And then every time they cut the gas line, we have to send out a fire truck to sit there, and they just kept doing it. I mean, they're cutting 20 a week. That is just bad behavior. They didn't want to wait for the gas company to go out there and mark it. They were just not being great performers. We didn't have any mechanism to charge them for that while we were sitting out there turning everybody's gas off and rolling fire trucks to go sit there every time. This gives us the ability to find them every time they cut the gas lines. And it's not to collect a bunch of revenue. It's so that they hopefully stop cutting the gas lines every time. And so, there's things like that we had to put in to beef up our ordinances so that we could, run the fire department in a more efficient way.
To what extent are we cultivating green space, and is that offsetting the increase in concrete space?
So with every new development, there's a requirement to dedicate parkland for that. Cultivating, was that the question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so again, every new development has a requirement to dedicate green space. They also, we're still looking at parkland and whether we should purchase it or just take what the developer gives us. That's a job that Chin addresses every day.
This is the molecular biology century. What is the city doing to attract and nurture biomedical specialists and companies to come to our area?
I'll take it. I don't know. I'm in insurance. I don't know anything about molecular biology, but I think what we're doing in general is we're trying to look for those kind of high-tech jobs, whether that's in molecular biology or aerospace or a variety of even petrochemical. We're looking for those different jobs to bring those here, those kind of white-collar jobs. Like I said before, we're not going to be putting in smokestacks or things like that, but we do have an incredibly highly educated workforce here I mean, it's the only place you can grow up, right? And your Little League coach could literally be a rocket scientist. So, you have those kind of people that already live here. So we need to attract those kind of businesses, those white collar kind of businesses here to League City. And we do that by showing them the quality of life, showing them the great housing stock, fantastic schools that we have. And so those are the kind of things that we are definitely pursuing from an economic development standpoint.
Yeah, and if you look at just our medical industry with UTMB, their campus, their continued campus expansion, we've got Memorial Hermann and their campus and their land. Methodist built the facility here, Kelsey-Seybold. And so as it relates to medical and medical office, we see that continuing to develop and being a natural market for economic development in League City.
What did the city do with the loss of the federal COVID funds? I think how is that affecting us, and who wants to tackle?
I'll take that again. And we're talking about loss from just the standpoint of not having them anymore, but we'll talk about two different pieces of the loss of that. So we never buoyed our budget with them, essentially. Our budget didn't need the money from the federal government. We ran our budget just like we always did. What we did with that money is we looked for some things that were one-time purchases to make. So like the ambulance. So we took it and we needed another ambulance, but we used it and bought one-time purchases with this federal money. We didn't take a bunch of the money and use it to pay for police and public works and things like that, and really stopgap our budget. So we were never kind of addicted to the federal money. We just used it for things that we nice to haves that we could buy. And the other side of it, I mean, it's not a secret, is we gave some money to the chamber. In some ways, it was not spent properly. We are working with the chamber to fix that issue. The new people in charge of the chamber have been very responsive to that, and we want to make sure that every dollar that was given to us is spent properly and spent in ways that benefit the citizens of League City. So that's what we did with it, and we're going to continue to make sure that any of the residual money is spent in that same manner.
What is the status of the Ike Dike?
That project might linger longer than the Grand Parkway. Obviously, incredibly expensive project. It's only going to get built with a whole lot of federal money and really dedication to get that done. I think there's still commitment from our congressional delegation to get it done, but it's not moving at a speed that anybody would like to see.
I think this is a request, John, more than it is a question. With the move to beautify the center islands of League City Parkway, could you please wash the back air pollution of the roadside barriers on the bridges over the tracks?
We're looking into doing that.
How was it decided that we would end up charging a library fee for those who live outside of League City?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to every other piece that I talked about allocating cost to those that create the cost. So we have a library that the committees and consultants are telling us are nearing capacity. And so that would require us to build a new library somewhere in the $70 to $80 million range. That's an incredible amount of money, $70 or $80 million, particularly when we could use that money for drainage projects and road projects and things like that. But we still want to be able to provide adequate space and resources in our library. So then when you look at the usage of the library, 35% of the usage comes from out of town. So if we have a resource that is constrained and the solution is to spend $80 million to fix that constraint, well, I could also just free up capacity at the current library. And so when 35% of the people come from out of town, that seems like the easiest way is they're not paying for it. Let's clear that capacity so then there's more capacity for citizens of League City. And to that end, we're right next to cities that don't provide a library. Not to throw stones at Webster, it's directly over Highway 3 right there. they don't provide a library, right? They don't have the resources for their city. At the same time, they're taking the money that they're not spending on these services for their citizens and spending it winning corporate deals as corporate handouts to get more tax-paying entities into their city. So I don't really feel obligated to perform their social services for them while they actively try to steal tax-paying businesses from League City. So I think at the end of the day, we're committed to working with the smaller cities that are all in the Galveston County Library Network and continue working with them. But I'm not here to pay for people from out of town whose cities don't frankly pay their own way. If they want to work some deal out with the city in general, we could do that. But it's about clearing the capacity so that we can make that library work for the next several years instead of, paying another $70, $80 million for a new one.
So in closing, is there anything else you gentlemen would like to add as we close on this event tonight, or today rather?
Yeah, just want to say thank you everybody for coming today. I have heard from multiple people it was too early, so we will take. I'm calling Jerry out right back there, but we will take that into account for future sessions.
Okay. You want to say anything, City Manager John Baumgartner?
Well, just, thank you, League City's residents, business community, staff. You all make for a very wonderful place to live and raise our families, and appreciate it. We look forward to 2024 being the best ever.